Something happened this month that I want to make sure that people do not miss. Donald Trump posted on Truth Social this document. It is a 32-page document containing all the latest information about what has been exposed about fraud in the 2020 election. We're going to walk through this document this week on Wolves in Finance. I need to start this video with a disclaimer. YouTube policy does not allow you to say in videos that the certified results of elections were wrong. So, in keeping with this policy, I will not be saying in this video whether Donald Trump did or did not win the 2020 election. Instead, I'm going to be laying out all the facts, and I'll let you decide for yourselves. What I want you to do is watch this video all the way to the end and then leave a comment down below letting me know what you think. Do you think the 2020 election was stolen? Let me know in the comments below. It's important to understand the context of President Trump's post. He is currently facing a criminal RICO trial in Fulton County, Georgia, because he questioned the results of the 2020 election. The case is based on a bizarre legal theory that Donald Trump knew that he lost the election, but lied about it and committed fraud by trying to convince everyone that he actually won. So the key question in the case was whether Donald Trump was lying when he claimed he won the 2020 election. The district attorney bringing the case against Donald Trump is Fani Willis. It was revealed in a court filing this week that Fani Willis has been sleeping with the special prosecutor she hired to handle the case against Trump. The special prosecutor is named Nathan Wade, and he has never filed a RICO case. Fani Willis has paid Nathan Wade more than $650,000 while they were sleeping together. Fani Willis has other attorneys working in her office with experience in RICO cases. Why in the world would she pay someone $650,000 who has no experience? It turns out they would then use the money to pay for trips to places like the Caribbean. This looks like obvious corruption, and there is currently a motion filed to dismiss. Let's go back to when the case was first filed. When President Trump was first arrested by Fani Willis in August, he announced that he was going to release a 100-page report containing evidence of fraud in the 2020 election that would prove the election was stolen. He claimed it was a conclusive report and that all charges should be dropped against me and others. Now, at the time, he never released that report, saying that his legal counsel wanted him to wait until trial. I believe this new report that was just released this month is part of the president's conclusive report. So what is in this new report? It goes through all the swing states in the 2020 election. For each state, it gives a list of bullet points with evidence of fraud in the election. Each one of the bullet points comes with citations to sources backing up these claims. This is important to understand. These are not just random statements of fact. The bullet points are backed up by detailed investigations, which you can then read to get even more information. Now, I'm not going to go through all the information in this report because there is a lot. I'm going to review some of the more shocking highlights. Here's a list of all the swing states with the vote differences. Each of these states was called for Joe Biden, some by very narrow margins. Donald Trump only needed to win 3 of these states, and he would have won the election. The report argues that Donald Trump actually won all of these 5 states: Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Michigan. Let's start with Georgia. In my opinion, this is the most obvious case of fraud. It was reported that Trump lost Georgia by 11,779 votes. In Fulton County, we have video evidence of a poll worker named Ruby Freeman running the same stack of ballots through the counting machines multiple times. Ironically, Ruby Freeman was later given the Presidential Citizens Medal by Joe Biden for her work during the 2020 election. Ruby Freeman has sued Rudy Giuliani for defamation in a Washington, D.C. court. And last month, a mostly Democrat jury awarded Ruby Freeman a $150 million verdict against Rudy Giuliani. In the complaint, Ruby Freeman explains that she did not like that Rudy Giuliani talked about the video of her and that Rudy Giuliani falsely accused her of counting the same ballots multiple times, among other things. She claims that since the election results were certified as correct, that any statement made by Rudy Giuliani is false. Rudy Giuliani was not allowed during the trial to submit one piece of evidence to the court. Now, can someone please explain this to me? How can there be a fair trial if the judge does not allow the defense to present any evidence? That doesn't seem very fair to me. There are some other unusual things about this case. How is this case being tried in Washington, D.C.? Ruby Freeman is in Fulton County, Georgia. Rudy Giuliani's comments were that she engaged in election fraud in Fulton County, Georgia. Why is this in Washington, D.C.? In the complaint, Ruby Freeman explains that Rudy Giuliani's comments were broadcast over the OAN news channel, which has an office in Washington, D.C. Rudy Giuliani also worked in Washington, D.C. as Donald Trump's lawyer. So for that reason, the case went to trial in Washington, D.C. in front of a mostly Democrat jury. Rudy Giuliani has already said that he plans to appeal the verdict. It should be noted that Ruby Freeman's complaint states that this video does not show her committing illegal ballot counting. But we can see with our own eyes that she counts the same stack of ballots multiple times. What should we choose to believe? Her own statement or the video that we can see with our own eyes? What do you think? The problem with Ruby Freeman's statements is that the evidence provides a lot of doubt. In the report from President Trump, it states, Fulton County certified 59,143 in-person votes on Election Day, despite the fact that only 14,152 people had voted as of 5 p.m. on November 3rd, 2020. Evidence suggests the in-person vote total on Election Day was inflated by approximately 37,000 votes. Somehow, a whole lot of votes came out of nowhere from people who did not exist. Could this have come from poll workers counting the same ballots multiple times? Remember that the vote difference in Georgia was only 11,779 votes, and we are talking about a potential 37,000 fake ballots. Another issue in Georgia was the mail-in ballots. It's much easier to cheat with mail-in ballots because anyone can drop it off in the mail. You are relying on the people counting the votes, like Ruby Freeman, to do the honest thing and verify that the ballot is accurate before they count it. Well, it turns out that in Georgia, likely 67,284 votes were cast from voters with invalid residency. These were people who did not actually live in Georgia, but had their vote counted anyway. Remember, the vote difference in Georgia was only 11,779 votes, and just this issue alone would be 67,284 illegal votes. There are many more bullet points about issues in the Georgia elections, but I think you get the point. There is a lot of evidence of election fraud in Georgia, specifically in Fulton County. So it is odd that Fulton County is the place that is criminally prosecuting Donald Trump for asking questions about the election. It also seems like Fani Willis is attempting to cover something up. The next state is Wisconsin. The vote difference was 20,682 votes. Wisconsin is interesting because they instituted a sweeping new election policy that because of COVID, anyone could request indefinitely confined status. That meant that you were too sick to leave the house and were granted an exception that you could vote by mail without having to show your ID. This resulted in 220,404 votes cast from individuals who were exempted from showing voter ID. That would be incredibly easy to cheat if you never had to show an ID. We are talking about a vote difference of 20,682 votes, and 220,404 votes were cast without an ID. This problem really shows itself when we look at nursing homes. Nursing homes in Milwaukee, Dane, and Racine counties had 100% turnout. So you're telling me that 100% of people in nursing homes voted? Some people in nursing homes are nearing death. So even people who were literally on their deathbeds got up and voted. Something just doesn't sound right to me about that. In one example, Meryl Barrett, who was 104 years old and did not recognize her own children, had a ballot cast in her name in the 2020 presidential election. Okay, now how obvious do we have to get that some funny business is going on? Again, there are many more bullet points about issues in Wisconsin, but I think you get the point. The next state is Pennsylvania. The vote difference in Pennsylvania was 80,555 votes. Now, that sounds like a lot until you find out that there were 121,240 more votes than voters. Pennsylvania uses a voting system called SURE, the Statewide Uniform Registry of Electors. They were never able to reconcile the number of votes that were counted with the number of people who were registered to vote. So the vote difference was 80,555 votes, and there were 121,240 more votes than voters. This is another example where there are many more bullet points in the report, but this one fact alone raises a lot of questions for me. The next state is Arizona. This is the closest vote margin with only 10,457 votes. Arizona did some of the most blatantly illegal things. I don't know if you remember this, but Arizona took a really long time to count their ballots. The election took place on November 3rd. Well, they didn't finish counting the ballots until November 30th. Well, it turns out they were accepting and counting ballots after the election day. These were illegal votes. Here's a quote from the report. Maricopa County accepted 20,500 mail-in ballots after Election Day. By law, ballots must be received no later than 7 p.m. on Election Day, which was November 3rd. So the election was over. The deadline was passed, and they were still receiving and counting ballots days after the election was over. These are illegal votes. The vote margin was 10,457 votes. This one example accounts for 20,500 ballots. What makes matters worse is that the Maricopa County Elections Department withheld this information from public records requests for 7 months after the elections. No one knew this was going on until it was too late to protest the election. This looks a lot like cheating. Also, just like in the other states, it looks like some of the votes were completely made up. 2 precincts in Pima County had over 100% turnout for mail-in ballots. Can someone in the comments please explain to me how this can happen? Because I'm really having a hard time understanding this. How is it possible to have more than 100% of people vote? How is that possible? What is even more suspicious is the Arizona Secretary of State during the 2020 election was someone named Katie Hobbs. She is the person responsible for running the election. It turns out, 2 years later, she somehow became the governor of Arizona. In 2022, she ran against Kari Lake. Katie Hobbs miraculously won against all polling predictions, and Katie Hobbs certified her own election count, naming herself the winner. Katie Hobbs' election is still being contested in the courts. With Arizona, there are many more bullet points in President Trump's report, but I think you get the point. The next state is Michigan. The vote difference is 151,188 votes. Now, this is the largest vote difference out of the swing states, and it sounds like a lot until you find out that Michigan has 271,566 more votes than the number of voters listed in its qualified voter file, more than 1.5 times the election margin. Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? Not only that, Michigan is a state where we have video of ballots being delivered in a van at 3:30 a.m. past the 8 p.m. deadline. This was 50 boxes of ballots, each containing thousands of ballots. How can they count ballots that were received after the deadline? When we look at the ballot counts, we can see the spike that came from the suspicious ballots. Michigan was also the state where we now know there was a police investigation of a company called GBI Strategies. The police raided a GBI Strategies office to find thousands of fraudulent voter registrations. The forms were in the same handwriting and used fake addresses. GBI Strategies was funded by a super PAC called Black PAC, which paid the firm $11,254,919 to register voters for Joe Biden in 2020. These people were not only under investigation for cheating during the election, they were making an awful lot of money doing it. Again, there are many more bullet points in the report, but I think you get the point.
Dominion Voting Systems acquired ES&S in 2010, which had previously acquired Diebold under its new name of Premier Election Solutions. This does not exhaust all statistical data anomalies encountered in the 2020 election, but data anomalies is only one factor to consider. Next is eyewitness and video evidence. In Georgia, there's a case of a poll worker named Ruby who was seen on Instagram giving a secretive live video of her working in the back room filled with absentee ballots.
I'm gonna let y'all see this. Okay, don't say nothing. Listen, look.
At 10:30 p.m. on November 3rd, all media and poll watchers were told to leave State Farm Arena because ballot counting was going to stop. But Ruby and her daughter and 3 others remained behind at State Farm Arena. They pulled boxes of ballots out from under the table that was placed there in the morning and distributed them to several counting stations.
Back to Fulton County, Georgia right now, where our reporter Blaine Alexander apparently has some new reporting on the expectations for that count.
Well, Rachel, we've learned that the counting continues tonight. You know, right here in State Farm Arena behind me, we've learned that there are 5 people who are still inside, still working to scan those absentee ballots and try and get those numbers tabulated. Now, initially, we were told that everybody went home at about 10:30, but I just got off the phone with the county spokesperson who tells me that indeed there are still some people in there quite literally burning the midnight oil, scanning ballot after ballot and trying to get that information in.
And Blaine, specifically, you said 5 people are inside that building? That's 5 of 5 actual individuals who are working on all the absentees in Fulton County right now? Just 5? Wow. Talk about having the sort of fate of the nation in your hands.
Ruby is seen here in this video running the exact same stack of ballots through the machine 3 times. Other workers do the same. Note that a large surge in Biden votes can be observed after this tabulation at 06:34 Greenwich Mean Time, which is 1:34 a.m. in Georgia, just after the time in question. You may ask, can a ballot really be counted more than once? Here is your answer from Coffee County, Georgia.
Can you scan a ballot more than once?
I've just done it.
I'm talking about
That's
you
the
just,
same batch that she's been doing.
you just keep scanning them.
I just kept scanning that same.
You just keep some of them.
I just scanned the same batches that y'all just voted. I never got any more until that
I
one.
don't know why they approve such a system.
Ruby allegedly posted this later on social media. Of course, the mainstream media calls this misinformation, and most references to these videos have been deleted from internet search results. Apple News, the morning of the election, sent out a push message to Apple News subscribers that elections are secure. So if it's true that election fraud is rare, what about Raquel Rodriguez? She was recently arrested for election fraud in Texas because of overwhelming video evidence incriminating herself that she was harvesting ballots for pay.
The top ticket to get votes for either Biden. How many votes do you think you can deliver for us?
At least 5,000.
And what are we looking at as far as how much that's going to cost?
For the entire team that I'm looking at 55,000.
So $55,000 for 5,000 votes, confident that get eager Biden.
If not more. I'm not going to overpromise, because remember, we're 16 days till election day. You give me cash, you can do whatever you want to do.
$55,000 upfront, 5,000 votes.
That's right.
Then there is cybersecurity evidence and the question of whether Dominion voting machines were tampered with over internet connections. Signed affidavits under oath from cybersecurity experts indicate that Dominion voter systems and Edison Research were using an unencrypted VPN with login credentials that were easily accessible and used by foreign adversaries to monitor and manipulate votes. The IP addresses into the Edison Research host servers went in both directions, meaning that not only were China and Iran and other countries accessing the servers, but also Edison Research was communicating back to these adversaries.
So that was the report that was posted by President Trump going through the 5 swing states in the 2020 election. Again, I'm not going to say whether the election was or was not stolen. I want you to decide. What do you think? Was the 2020 election stolen? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. For some reason, YouTube does not want my videos getting out there. So if you're not subscribed, you're probably not going to see them in your feed. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, if you want to support the channel, the best way is to sign up for a monthly membership on my website, wolvesandfinance.com. My videos get demonetized a lot. So the only way I survive is with support from viewers like you. If you're interested, a membership for $6 a month helps me to continue to put out these videos. I'm Zach from Wolves and Finance. Thank you for watching.